Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us this evening for our regular council meeting. I was waiting until all of the councilors are present. We're still expecting perhaps one or two more people, so why don't we start the meeting as is our, I'm going to say our normal practice, our new practice for Zoom meetings, with the national anthem, followed by our Indigenous land acknowledgement. Thank you. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. I'm just going back now to check. I'm looking at our participants list. I believe that we have all of our council members. That is council. I'm just looking at down the screen here. Councillor Joe Lamb, Councillor Beth Gorham Matthews, Councillor Joe McEwen, Councillor Brian Woods, who is here by telephone, and myself, Mayor George Comrie. We also have with us our CAO clerk, Michelle Hendry. And Michelle, I do not see any other staff on the call. Am I missing anybody?
I've just double checked that we may have Fire Chief Bob Whitman with us. Are you with us, Bob? We don't always recognize his number.
Oh, I see his number there. Yeah, I saw
3824.
Yeah.
Very good. That would be the only other staff person.
And it sounds like we do not have our planner, John Jackson. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of. I know he's calling from out of the province, but I don't see his normal phone number here. And I'm sure he would be speaking up by now if he was able to join us.
Okay, so that will probably affect our agenda a bit, but anyway, let me begin by asking if there is any disclosure of pecuniary interest on the part of counselors. I myself was planning to declare one in respect of planning item 8.4. However, if Mr. Jackson is not going to join us, then we will, I believe, not be dealing with those planning items. And so I guess we can say that there are no, unless he does manage to join us in the next few minutes, we will say that there are no disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion then, please, to approve the agenda with the omission of the planning items under section 8?
I'll make the motion, Councillor
Thank you.
Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
McEwen.
okay, I think I got Councillor Woods first. Be it resolved that the agenda for this meeting be adopted as present. Any opposition? Hearing none, I'll declare the agenda approved. We are starting the meeting, as you'll realize, partway through, we having had a closed session earlier prior to the supper hour. But we do have some items. I'm going to check and see because we didn't get to everything on the closed agenda. So I believe there are, in fact, no items arising from the closed session.
The minutes.
Oh, I apologize. You're absolutely right. There we are. Thank you. Could I get a mover and seconder then, please, to approve the minutes of the closed session on August 3rd?
I will move, Councillor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by? Is there a seconder?
I'll second it, Councillor Woods.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there anyone opposed to approving those minutes? We reviewed them already in the closed session. Okay. Hearing none, I'll declare those minutes approved. Oh, I'm sorry. There was actually, I apologize. They should have been approved with a minor correction. And the agenda, the item, it's a minor correction to the mover and seconder were listed as the same person. So it's 2021-03C, I believe is the agenda, but I'm just going to make a notation that approval is with a minor correction. And I'm assuming mover and seconder that you're okay with that.
Yes.
Thank you. So this then brings us to item 7 on the agenda. And we have this evening a delegation from the Gooseneck Property Owners Association. And my notes say that that the presenters are Jim Alexander, Tony Poxleitner, and Paul Jarvis, but I noticed I saw Jim was on the call earlier. So Jim, the floor is yours. If you would like to introduce the co-presenters that are with you, just so we have their names right for the record and you can see them. Please go
Okay.
ahead. We'll give you a few minutes to present your report, and then counselors will have the opportunity to ask questions when you're finished.
Okay, I think I had my there. Can you hear me? I'm on Zoom call.
Jim, you're having a bandwidth issue. I would say your voice is breaking up pretty badly. I'm wondering if the best thing to do would be for you to shut off your video, shut your camera off, and just try the audio.
Okay. How's that? Is that better?
Sounds a bit better. Yes, thanks.
Okay.
Pretty choppy a minute ago.
Yeah, I just turned the camera off. As you know, the Wi-Fi up around here is not the greatest. Yeah, good evening, Mayor and councilors. I'm not sure who I'm talking to, but I'm just gonna do a quick introduction here to the lake plan. I sent it to Mayor Comrie, and I'm presuming, George, that you forwarded it to other councilors.
Yes,
The
the
lake-
council has seen it, and those who have picked up the agenda will have seen a copy of it in the circulated with the agenda.
Great. So hopefully you've read that at least once. I'm not going to do much talking here other than just to say that it was a sort of a culmination of 3 years of work. We contacted and hired a man named Randy French and his wife Marg to do a lake plan for us. This whole event started about 3 years ago. What I'm going to do though is I'm just going to turn it over to Paul Jarvis. Paul worked with Randy doing some additions some editing on the report, and he's going to be our main spokesperson tonight. Okay, so I'll just turn that over to Paul, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
He needs to Mike is unmute his mic.
I don't actually see where Paul is on the participants list, so
He should be on the participants list. Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't see him. There are some phone numbers there that
Oh, he's on the Zoom call. He's on the Zoom call. I can see his face. Yeah.
I think it
can I.
might be Heather Heisey.
there.
Heather, hi.
Oh, okay. So all right, there I
There
see
you
now. Okay,
Okay,
sorry,
there-
Paul. Paul, your microphone is muted. You need to turn it off by clicking up. You'll see a mute, unmute up towards your head at the top. Look up where your picture is, at the very top of your screen, or down the side, wherever it is. Look.
Okay, am I speaking now?
Yeah, now we got you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just, good evening, everyone. I'll just dive right in. The report before you contains recommendations for 5 inclusions for a Gooseneck Lake specific lake policy. And you will have seen that those 5 inclusions are listed at pages 35 and 36 of the report. Jim mentioned that the report was prepared by Randy and Mark French. I believe you have as an appendix their backgrounds. I just want to note that they are experienced, I'd say expert, in the development, implementation of municipal planning, that expertise gained in the Muskoka area and other lake district municipalities. It was done at the request of the Gooseneck Lake Property Owners Association because we wanted their expertise applied to current facts and any available scientific information in determining best planning policies for the health of Gooseneck Lake and future development. As you review the report, you'll see that they paid attention to existing Whitestone planning principles and policies, and that the proposed inclusions fit within those principles and policies. Indeed, the report references them as it goes. Recommendation number 1, it is based on the position that it's important to know that the nature of the lake in planning. It's a long, narrow lake. It's referred to as having a riverine shape because it's like a twisty river. It's also important to know that it's a shallow lake. Its average depth is just 4 meters, and that it has minimal inflow. There are just 2 small lakes that feed into Gooseneck, which in turn feeds down into Wawashkish. And finally, it's important to know that it's a warm water lake. It has a wilderness character, in part as a result of the fact that 30% of the shoreline is crown land. Recommendation number 2 has planning implications about the nature of the lake. Those planning implications are heavily, potentially at least, heavily impacted by the volume of recreational boating and number of new cottages which might be built on the lake. I would note that new cottages to be built on the lake could come from 2 potential sources. The first is cottages which might be built on existing cottage lots, of which there are 19. And the second is cottages which might be built on new development of vacant land. There is currently vacant land and land classified as managed forest, which might be the subject of development. I'd like to come back to this particular point in the context of the specific recommendations that you find in item number 5 of the recommendations, because there's quite a detailed analysis in the report around this issue. Recommendation number 3 reflects the current official plan of Whitestone, its requirement in section 9.02.2, and it also reflects recent experience of Whitestone in new lot development on Gooseneck. Members of the council may remember that there was an application several years ago for 3 lots to be developed from vacant land. Given that number, there was no need for a plan of subdivision. And in that case, item 9.02.2 of the official plan, the requirement that water access lots have a dedicated landing, parking, launching property for them specifically wasn't required of this application by council. That application was followed within a matter of about a year by a further application for 3 lots on related property. And on that occasion, council said, okay, we are going to require that there be dedicated parking and launching with respect to water access lots to be developed as is required in the official plan. And the language that you find in the report, the recommendation, is the language that was applied on consent, on a consent application at that time. Recommendation number 4 makes clear that existing fish habitat protections will continue. That's an existing provision in the official plan, section 12, and it's being brought forward here to reinforce that it applies to Gooseneck Lake. And then finally, we come to recommendation number 5, which has a number of items within it. The first is that it should be no commercial development on Gooseneck Lake. The official plan in section 13 recognizes generally that commercial development is incompatible with low-density cottage and residential areas. The nature of Gooseneck Lake, its size, its depth, its so forth, the limits placed on water quality and carrying capacity reinforce that this is not a lake on which commercial development is appropriate. And you can find that addressed in the report, specifically at pages 22 and 23. The second bullet point with respect to recommendation 5 is that new residential lots should have a minimum lot frontage of 150 meters. This comes from a concern about maintaining the water quality of Gooseneck Lake, and it's supported by a recreational boating capacity, which you'll find at page 33 of the report. And it's also supported by water quality concerns with respect to the lake. And the report notes that the lake has 77 lots on it currently, 13 residential, 45 seasonal, 19 currently vacant. Any new development will occur in one or all of 5 specific places on the lake. It's the only place left for development because the balance of the lake beyond these places is Crown land. And if you look at maps 5 and 6, you'll see that it's possible to see where those lots would come from. And it's also possible to predict how many lots in total could come. And that's based on the current official plan requirement that frontage on new lots have a minimum of 90 meters. And when you do the math on the available space and that 90 meter footage, you end up with 31 new lots from new development possible under the current official plan. The report and the Gooseneck Lake Properties Association takes the position that that's too many lots to ensure acceptable phosphorus water quality, and rather that the number should be capped at 16 new lots from new development. I get that, and the report gets that, by applying the Michalski-Nielsen report, which the council saw in 2018 in the context of another application. And that report analyzed phosphorus levels in the lake and concluded that further development would be safe in terms of phosphorus levels, but within limits. And it suggested a limit of 37 road access cottages could be added to the lake. However, they did not, in doing that analysis, address the fact that there are already 19 vacant lots on the lake without cottages, which presumably the owners are entitled to build on, such that the number of 37 has to be reduced by 19 to see how many lots can come from new development. They also didn't address the fact that on Gooseneck Lake, permanent residences are becoming more common, and that permanent residences, according to the Lakeshore Capacity Handbook, put a greater pressure on lakes in terms of phosphorus contents than seasonal dwellings. And the report does an analysis based on Whitestone's preference for residential over cottage, and based on history in terms of conversions, to say that the number that Michalski talks about of 37 properties really ought to be more like 35, taking into context the permanent residences and future ones. And when that is combined with the existing 19 lots, you end up with 16 lots being consistent with 16 new lots being consistent with safe water under the Michalski-Nielsen report. The report notes I'm sorry, I should say the lake report before you notes that increasing the frontage to a minimum of 150 meters, minimum frontage, would achieve several things. First, new lot creation would go from 31 lots to 17. Remember, it talks about 31 are possible. If the frontages required are 150 meters, we end up with 17 new lots. And that's consistent with development without negative impact on water quality. It's also consistent with the nature of the lake. A wilderness, semi-wilderness feel for the lake is maintained at 17 lots with 150 meter frontage. And it also finally ensures equity amongst property owners of the potentially developable land. You're not faced as a council with a first come, first serve approach to development, but rather know that the land yet to be developed will be done on the basis of equitable treatment of all of the remaining landowners at 150 meter frontages. 150 meter frontages are known to the municipality. You have MF3, 150 meter frontage, as one of your available zonings. It's also what you've done at LaBrache Lake under the LaBrache Lake policy. And a variant of it on Wawashkish, you've done 100 meter frontages minimum with respect to Wawashkish. With respect then to the balance of the recommendations, and I fear I'm running out of time, I think they are relatively straightforward. The shoreline buffer is discussed at pages 24 and 25, and it comes from the official plan of the Lake of Bays, the idea for it. And that is the balance between natural shoreline and actively used shoreline. The concept of 30 meter setbacks for septic is something that in the official plan, Whitestone encourages and wants to see where possible. Given the nature of the lake, given the pressures already on it, we think, and the report suggests, that it ought to be the case for any new future development with respect to Whitestone. There are several provisions that talk about crown land, and you can find those, I'm sorry, just on the 30 meter setback, that's what you've done with respect to Lorimer Lake and Fairholme Lake, the report says. With respect to crown land, there's talk about the fact that crown land ought not to be the source of further cottage development on the lake in the event the moratorium is in some way changed, in as much as 17 properties from existing land, if developed, already put us at the point that the lake can withstand. And finally, there's the recommendation that in the event that there is further development, it be done so as to minimize artificial light and enhance the wilderness character of the lake. So that's a really quick run through of the report for you. If there are any questions, I'd be happy at the appropriate time to try and answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. I'll open the floor to questions from councilors. Questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor Comrie?
Go ahead, Councillor Cora Matthews.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for coming and thank you for doing all this diligent work and research on your lake. We've recently in the municipality started an environmental stewardship committee, and one of the things we're looking at is to do something similar to this for all our lakes in the municipality, to get the input from residents on lake planning and management before we're at the point where we're facing overcapacity and such. You know, a lot of the recommendations that you have in here are quite similar to what other municipalities are doing in terms of setbacks and lake frontages that will, you know, protect the environment and protect overcrowding on the lakes and lake capacity before you get to the point where you're overcapacitated. You know, and it is a delicate balance between respecting all the rights of the individuals that live on each lake. Everyone has different preferences and activities in terms of what they want to do within their time spending on the lake. So it isn't a balance in getting everyone's feedback before proceeding with something like this. But, you know, I have a lot of respect for the Frenches. They are certainly well known within the lake planning community. They've been one of the planners that was recommended to us to speak to in terms of furthering our work with the Environmental Stewardship Committee in terms of lake planning. So, you know, this is a great read. It's a lot of information and certainly appreciated and well needed in this time before, like I said, before we get to the point where we've gone too far. So thank you very much for being here and for taking the time to start to do this work for us.
Thank you. Councilor McEwen.
Yeah, I guess I'll follow up on Councilor Matthews there. I'm on the Environmental Stewardship Committee also. And we have an ad hoc committee struck to look at the lakes, as Beth, I guess, was mentioning. And we have some significant information on, like, as was mentioned there from Paul, I guess. Yes, Paul. And by the way, thanks, Paul. Excellent presentation. You threw a lot of numbers at us, which are well identified in your report. Yeah, we have information on certainly Lorimer Lake and Fairholme Lake and Wawash Kesh, which in the past have been deemed as necessary for cold water, I guess, lakes. And I think what's coming out of this committee from my consensus that there's concern about the warmer lakes, shallower lakes, overpopulation on lakes, fish protection in lakes, and the whole kicker. You have a very comprehensive report and you've covered a tremendous amount of territory. And of course, following the handbooks and the lake quality informations that are out there, there's a myriad of stuff to work with. I think this is probably the beginning of what the municipality will have to be interested in looking at with respect to numerous lakes, including certainly your lake, which could be a leader in the pack here with the information and the info you have for us to start with and to work with moving forward. You mentioned some things very specifically, like phosphorus level in the lakes, which can be a function of septic controls. And we have an ad hoc committee from our environmental committee group as well, which will be looking at septic beds and septics and the effect on lakes, and doing at least, hopefully in the short term, some just public relations education on proper use of septic systems and water flowing into and around lakes. You mentioned the frontage minimum for homes on, say, your lake, and comparing it to other lakes like Wawash Kesh, you said 100 meters. We have quite an extensive OP official plan and the bylaws, which cover so many different numbers, and that we have to, I think, be careful not to have a whole set of different numbers for different lakes in terms of minimums and requirements. But certainly the time is coming to, I think, in my mind, move forward with investigations of how we can, quantify and qualify this information and needs around all of our lakes. So you're certainly on target. To think that you've done this for 2 or 3 years, it's not. It certainly is not unnoticed that you've put a tremendous amount of time into it. Someone's gathered an awful lot of information over that period of time. So thank you for your info.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from councilors?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, it's Councillor
Go,
Woods.
go ahead, Councillor Woods.
I would just like to thank Paul and I think it was Jim and Tony for this report. It's quite the in-depth, extensive report. That's for sure. In the one section, it would be page 14 of 238 under lake concerns. Concerns identified in the survey that you guys put out. Septic systems were up there with 21 people that responded, said it was a significant impact. I was a little bit surprised that nobody thought to mention or write in here that maybe it's a good idea to have mandatory septic inspections for properties on our waterfront, especially in, you know, something like Gooseneck Lake. I know there's some older properties over there. Septics don't always function properly. Has anyone in the association went out and got their septics tested to see if they're functioning properly?
Sorry, I didn't get all of the comment there. I think what you're referring, individual cottagers on the lake have identified as some of the concerns that came to them, as opposed to something that the Frenches have had input to with their expertise. I guess what I could say about that is, my understanding is that there is provincial regulation with respect to the need for inspection and the requirement of inspection for septics. And that as I understand it, it is a regulated process now. I'm not sure what we as a cottage association can do beyond education to bring home to individual cottage owners of that fact.
I was just curious and asking if any of your association members had went out on their own and got recent reports done on their septic to see if they're functioning properly. I mean, to me, a poor functioning septic that's close to any body of water, that's gonna definitely affect lake quality.
Well,
I was just wondering if you have or anyone else in your association has. And to me, I think it would be a good idea.
Well, I can tell you, we had our septic inspected and pumped about 2 years ago. I know that the association had a speaker in, and I'm not going to get the time right on this, maybe 5 years ago, to talk about septic or maybe longer, to talk about septic regulations, septic requirements, inspections, pump outs, et cetera, and to reinforce what a serious issue it is. But no, I'm not aware. There was no canvass of individuals about what in particular they've done with respect to their septic system.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify something in regard to septic inspections. The provincial regulations take effect really there are 2 points of contact. Number one is if you want to build a system, if you want to install a septic system, you have to get a permit, and the permits in our case come from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority, that they send out inspectors to look at where it's going and how it's going to be designed and so on, and make sure that it is appropriate to locate it where it is and build it in a certain way. And they actually inspect and improve the installation of it. Thereafter, the companies that pump them out who are licensed by the Ministry of the Environment, they are required to not to inspect them in any sort of formal way, but to identify situations where, for example, a tank appears to be leaking or a tile field appears to be blocked, and report it. The problem is they don't. In most cases, they tend to look the other way if they see things that they think are not good. And the real ringer here, of course, is that they only come when you, the property owner, call them. So there's nothing to say you have to have your tank pumped out or your septic system inspected at certain intervals, and that report has to go, has to go to some authority, unless the municipality mandates it, and the municipality can mandate it. It's sometimes not a popular thing, but it's possible for the municipality to pass a bylaw requiring those inspections to be done and reports to be filed. So, and some municipalities do in fact do that. So that's the, just to sort of clarify how the whole thing works. And there are, by the way, testing processes that involve use of a colored dye, for essentially flushing it down a toilet or down a sink drain or whatever, and waiting to see if any of it eventually gets out into the, onto the ground or into the water, because you can see it if that happens. And some municipalities do that kind of testing to identify problems. I see Councillor Lamb, did you
Yeah.
have your hand up?
Yeah, just, I don't have a lot to add. Thank you, Jim and Paul, for your report. Yeah, it's always, I find a delicate balance between environmental concerns and, of course, development, and striking that balance is always sometimes pretty hard. And there are environmental studies like this that and I think we kind of went through it a bit when the Nashes were doing their work. They had environmental studies, if I recall, and it's a few years ago now, that said some different things, right? And again, I'm no expert in any of this stuff, really, but we have to be careful to make sure that we take care of the quality of our lakes, while at the same time, not becoming too restrictive. And I guess that's something we have to look at. So I guess the question in my mind is kind of, thank you for the report. I would like, for instance, someone, John Jackson or our, I guess, would be the closest to comment on this report at some point. So maybe he can come back with his thoughts on it. And also, we go over the official plan every so often. And I asked today, and I think the last time we looked at the official plan, if I'm not mistaken, was 2015. And when I asked John Jackson's office today how often it should happen, they said something like 5 years. So if that's true, we're overdue. So sometime over the next year or two, we need to sit down and do our official plan, which will specifically, I think, talk about some of the lakes. And we've got requests from Lorimer Lake, which are in our agenda tonight under correspondence, and other things, So, I kind of think, rather than kind of keep trying to piecemeal our official plan and change it, maybe it's time, I don't know whether it's next year or maybe a new council in just after a year from now, needs to do an official plan where a study like this will then, or some aspects of it will be incorporated into the official plan. So I may be out on my dates or whatever. Again, I appreciate the work that you've done. Certainly, I guess we have to consider some of your recommendations. Certainly things like 30 meters, I think it's 30 meters back on a septic is a pretty good thing. And I think becoming more and more of a standard thing in terms of size of the lots and things like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the capacity of your lake. People can have different capacities depending on who's studying it. the water is public water. We have a boat launch there. We want to ensure that the public can use the lake that you're on. And anyway, we have to strike a delicate balance, and we do have an environmental committee that has been struck up, and I'm sure they'll come to us with a lot of recommendations that should apply to many of our lakes. So anyway, thank you for your report, and hopefully some of these things will make it into the official plan when we review it. So thank you.
If I may, Councillor Lamb, I can answer one point specifically for you. You referenced a report having been prepared and relied upon when the Nashes were doing their development. The report that's referred to here, the Michalski-Nielsen report, is that report. It's the same report.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, it's the same data that they relied on in 2018 to say that a certain number of lots could be borne by the lake. The second thing I'd say, I understand that the council wants to have an integrated approach with respect to the official plan, and that's only good planning. But the one thing I would note is that your official plan does contemplate specific lake policies. And what we're asking is that you consider for Gooseneck Lake, these recommendations, at least in the context of a specific lake policy for Gooseneck, whatever you may do ultimately to integrate some of the ideas into your larger official plan.
Yes, and I understand that completely, and we have special provisions, for instance, at Lorimer Lake and other lakes. I realize that. I guess what I was speaking to more was the timing of when we would incorporate whatever we would incorporate from this study into our official plan. And I don't know the answer to that right now. So.
I understand. Thank you.
Councillor McEwen?
Yeah, Jim, I noticed the recreational boats, ATVs, is well highlighted, and it's again a very delicate balance here between recreational vehicles, whether it be ATVs, personal watercraft. That's one that's really been in the forefront of a lot of cottages, and one of the probably the number one complaint I get from people is how we can do something about the numbers, the speeds, the activities they perform, thinking of sea-doos and such. It's a real difficult one. It seems to be somewhat far down the list of additional concerns. I guess they're not in any specific order. Is that one that's a big one in your lake? And I've done a little investigation a year or two ago as to how you can minimize certain activities or crafts or whatever. And on a specific lake, it almost seems like you need 100% compliance to certainly ban something, or it's a real tricky one because it's pleasure for some and it's a nuisance for others. It's just it's getting to be bigger all the time. Do you have any comments on the watercraft side of it?
Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Oh, not very clear.
Yeah, it's as you said. Hang on a second.
Sorry, Jimmy.
Stop
Yeah,
video.
thanks. Cut. Yeah,
Okay.
you need to cut the camera.
Yeah, I think what you're doing, Councillor, is you're referencing some of the items in the survey results. There are some of the priorities of people, and those are pretty random. We tabulated, or Randy tabulated, the numbers on what was prioritized by certain individuals. I guess it's always tricky on any given lake. I mean, I'm not a motorboatist myself. I have a canoe, and if it was up to me, the lake would be motor free. But that's completely unrealistic, obviously. It's a small lake. It's not really conducive to large watercraft. As far as ATVs and things like that, I mean, people reference those, but I think we have a huge problem, not on the lake, but near the lake, Black Lake, and what's happening up there in that area is in my opinion, it's atrocious. I mean, what's happening? The country's, with these ATV clubs and these Jeep clubs and so forth. That's a whole other issue. I don't know if that answers your question, Councillor McEwen, or not. But I think it would be hard to obviously police any kinds of things like that, motor traffic on the lake. We try our best to educate people at the launch not to clean their boats so they don't bring invasive species onto the lake, for example. And there's some information at the boat launch for people to read if they would.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm conscious of the time, but I did want to just make a couple of comments. And originally I thought that although it's certainly not our intention to pass any resolutions in regard to the requests from the association tonight, I had thought that perhaps we might have a chance to have a little bit of discussion about sort of how we would proceed with this going forward. And I was, as you know, hoping that our planner, John Jackson, would be here and he would be able to comment. And by the way, he has seen the report, Jim and Paul, he's seen your report. And I think he found it very interesting, but I'll leave it to him to another meeting to perhaps comment. What I wanted to say is this, two things. First of all, the lakes in the municipality are very different in character, and they are very different in their stage of development. Some of you will know that we have some lakes that are at capacity, that are deemed to be at capacity, and essentially there is no new lot creation taking place on them. The way we have operated historically is that we have we have essentially accepted applications for development of various kinds until it became apparent to people that the development was causing a problem of one sort or another for the character of the lake. And then we would start to tighten the restrictions down, and eventually, if you do that a few stages, and eventually you get to the no new development scenario. I honestly think, and I'll say that several years ago, I encouraged the Gooseneck Association to do what they've done. That I think each lake should look at its own special characteristics and do a study. And I'd have to say I was quite impressed with the French study. It was kind of the right length. I mean, you could make these into a very, very elaborate environmental assessment type efforts that cost a lot of money. But it kind of has the right level of detail. And the most interesting thing I found in it was that it defines the capacity constraint in what I see as a holistic way. Some of you will know that in the past, what we've done is we've used things like lake trout models, which say that if the lake has lake trout in it, then there's certain things that you ought to do, and they will ultimately determine the capacity of the lake for development. Those models, I think, are not they've fallen into disuse. And there is, of course, the concerns about water quality, which tend to focus on phosphorus, phosphates, and dissolved oxygen, and other such factors. But even there, the character of the lakes and their ability to absorb development varies substantially. And so I think what is interesting is that the Frenchies have added in these other they are more sort of aesthetic kinds of things, but what is the experience like for the people who have property on the lake? And how does that change as a function of development? So for example, you could ask a question, and you could ask it with respect to a number of our lakes. Shawanaga is one, Gooseneck is another. How many folks do you think can water ski on the lake at once? Now, if you've never been on the lake, you might not understand that as an issue, but I suggest to you that on Gooseneck Lake, the number is a single digit, less than 5, might be 2. So, and when I say how many can do it, it's without running into each other and endangering the people in the canoes and other such things, you know, and that's a function of the shape of the lake, the size and shape, really. So, you know, these are the kinds of things that folks ought to look at. So in my opinion, regardless of how we do it, the official plan should have lake specific content, and the lake specific content should be based on studies like this one. The last thing I'm going to say is there seems to be a renewed interest in this on the part of some other lakes. Just recently, and I'm kind of surprised because, you know, the first couple of years I was on council, I didn't really hear a whole lot about this, but I hear folks on Whitestone Lake asking this question about Whitestone Lake. I hear folks on Owashkash, which is where I am, asking those questions about Owashkash. And I don't think anybody's saying Owashkash is that development, is that capacity for development. But the question is, do you wait till it gets there or gets close to there and then figure out what to do, or do you have a study and in order to do that, you need to take account of, you know, your property asset, how much there is there to be that's developable, and how many cottages there already are, and what the nature of them is, and all of the other characteristics of the lake and so on. And then you come up with something, and that would have to be reflected in the official plan in the lake specific section. And maybe even get into zoning. And that's a big piece of work, but my suggestion to everybody is that we ought to bite the bullet like the Gooseneck Association has done, and do it proactively, and do it in a fairly scientific way, a fairly disciplined way, let's say. And then as we get the results of the studies, consider them carefully, get lots of public input, figure out the way forward, and then incorporate it into the official plan. And we don't have to wait for a major revision of the official plan. We are already making amendments. We actually have, we could go as long as 10 years, and we'll get John to comment on this when he's available, but we can continue to make incremental adjustments to it as we find necessary. So, you know, I'm not sure that putting off, I'm not sure I'm in favor of putting off that. It's gonna take longer. It's not a question of whether this council or the next council should do it. It's gonna take a while to do it for all the lakes, but we should start collecting input now. So that's my $2 or $2 worth or whatever. And I want to thank the association for coming and sharing this work with us, and for taking the initiative to do it in the first place. And I hope it'll give us some food for further thought, and we'll also, you know, at subsequent meetings, we can come back and talk some more about sort of how we want to deal with the official plan, and how we want to deal with the various recommendations, which are going to come probably from, I suspect we're going to see a bunch of these recommendations in the near future. So thank you, everybody, for that discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, for hearing us.
Thank you very much.
The next thing that we would have done would be to move into the committee of the whole to deal with more planning items. As I suggested at the outset, I don't think that we can do justice to these without John Jackson with us, on whose reports they are based. And so we're going to skip over that. And that will take us to item 10, which is our consent agenda. And the first item is on the consent agenda. Well, there are only two items. One is the council meeting minutes for August 3rd for the regular meeting. And the second one is the list of unfinished business, which is on page 5 of your agenda. So could I get a motion to receive and or approve the items contained in the consent agenda? Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move.
Councillor Gorham Matthews, thank you. Seconded by
I'll second, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All right, is there any opposition to receiving these items? While approving the minutes and receiving the unfinished business. All right. And we'll note that there are no matters arising. And that brings us to accounts payable. Could I get a motion, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone approve accounts payable in the amount of $309,663.23 and payroll in the amount of $79,070.48 for payment?
I'll make the motion, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by,
I'll second it, Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Is there any discussion, questions, or comments regarding the items in the payables?
Yeah, I have a couple, I think, here. I'm just pulling my agenda up here. Just a comment, Moore Propane on page 95 of 238. Some years ago, we went out and we canvassed the propane companies for the best price. And Moore was the lowest. And I think at that time it was something like 30 cents a liter for propane. But I think it's time that we should do some sort of calls, at least to people like Georgian Bay, Superior, and others, to ensure that we're getting the lowest price in terms of propane. And I say that with the background that I know we have a consortium here in Whitestone. Actually, it's with Moore, or not with Moore, with Superior, sorry. And I know this year that our price has gone from 49.5 to 62 cents. So a significant increase. So I would just ask staff to consider that, to go out. I don't know how formally we have to do that. I'm not questioning any of the amounts here. I'm just, when I saw it today, I thought, well, we're going, into another winter, and maybe we should go out and do that. So Any comment from Michelle on that or not?
Thank you, Councillor. And yes, I've made note of that. I think that we would probably want to do a tender based on the amount of propane the municipality uses, but it's certainly a good idea to make sure that we're getting the best price for the municipality.
Okay, the other item that I had is on page 102 of 238. John Jackson Planner Inc. We've got a whole bunch of charges, $9.99, $18.30, $12.68. And in the past, we always had the file identified as to what that was for. So we could tell, okay, we spent that amount of money on the Lamb property or the Smith property or whatever. So is there a reason we don't put that in anymore? They're just all bills. And in John's case, I don't know, it's $9,700. And also that gives us, I guess, some background as to what's chargeable back to a file and what isn't, right? So again, any comment there?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I actually noticed that myself when I looked at the accounts listing. I will talk to the accounts payable clerk. You're right, we normally list the file that he is billing us for. Sometimes it's two files in the same invoice, but we like him to separate the invoices. So I will remind the accounts payable clerk that that should be noted in the accounts payable listing.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments about payables? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll for the vote on this one, please.
Thank you. Councillor Forum Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
All right, thank you. The next one on our agenda is bylaws, and bylaw item 12.1 was a matter. Oh, sorry, maybe I've got this. I'll ask the CAO clerk, is this one off? We did not deal with this in closed, with the other part of this in closed. Should this come off the agenda?
Thank you, Mayor Comrie. No, this is not a closed item, and it was not part of the planning matters. It's a simple deeming bylaw. And as you'll see, there's a memo from Paula Macri, the planning assistant. And it's deeming lots 33, 34, 35, and 36 of Plan 53 deemed not to be a registered subdivision. And those lots are adjacent to 520. And that's to permit the septic system, which services, it's to allow the septic system to connect to the that services the house on lots 34 to 36.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I apologize. I missed it with. All right, so false start there. We do need to deal with this one. And you have all the information you need to deal with it. So could I get a mover and seconder, please, that bylaw number 35-2021 being a bylaw to deem lots 33, 34, 35, and 36 on Plan 53 in the municipality of Whitestone not to be part of a registered plan of subdivision. That it be read a first and second time the 7th day of September 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed this 7th day of September 2021 and numbered 35-2021. Can I get a mover and seconder for this, please?
I will move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second.
Councillor Gore Matthews. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'm not hearing
Can
it.
someone, can perhaps Michelle or our CEO can give a quick Reader's Digest, what's this about again? The septic, and it's legitimizing a septic or something?
Yes, so if Counselor has the attachment 1 to the memo in front of them, you'll see that lot 33 is also owned by the people that live on lots 34, 35, and 36, but they're not joined. And the septic for the house that's located on lot 34, 35, and 36 is on lot 33. And the septic needs some repairs and maintenance, and the deeming bylaw is required to link that property to the house so that the North Bay Mattawa can approve the septic improvements.
Thank you.
What I believe must have happened is that lots 34, 35, they were all separate lots on a plan of subdivision. 34, 35, and 36 have already merged, but 33 did not, for whatever reason. So, but now you understand why they want it to, and effectively it's making it makes one larger property. The effect of this deeming bylaw if we pass it. So are there any other questions or comments about the bylaw? If not, I will ask our clerk to read the roll, please, for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
thank you, Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
thank you, Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Next is item 12.2, which is a bylaw to appoint an interim chief building official. I'll give our CAO an opportunity just to comment on this, but all I was going to say is that it is a requirement that the municipality have a chief building official. We are required to have someone engaged to perform the duties of the CBO under the Building Code Act. And so, as you perhaps know, our current chief building official has moved on to, or is moving on to greener pastures, and so we need to have some interim measure to fill his vacancy while we look for some other arrangement. So that's the purpose of this. Michelle, is there anything else you want to?
No, that's correct,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor.
that's
Nothing to
fine.
add. The interim chief building official is Mrs. Debbie Swim, and she will be here until the municipality makes other arrangements for a more permanent solution.
So you have the bylaw in front of you. Could I get a mover and seconder that
I'll
bylaw
move.
30?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Seconded by,
I'll second it. Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. I'll just read the motion for the records in case anybody is listening to the recording and doesn't have the paper in front of them. The motion is that bylaw 36-2021, being a bylaw to appoint an interim chief building official, be read a first and second time the 7th day of September 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed the 7th day of September 2021, and numbered bylaw 36-2021. That's the motion in front of us. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Thank you. Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor or Mayor Comrie,
Yes.
thank you. That motion is carried.
And finally, under the bylaw section, we have a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure for the purposes of receiving Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program funding for the expansion of the nurse practitioner-led clinic. So I'll read the motion and then get a mover and seconder. That bylaw 37-2021, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure for the purposes of receiving Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, that's ISIP, funding for the expansion of the nurse practitioner-led clinic, be read a first and second time the 7th day of September 2021, and further read a third time, passed and properly signed and sealed the 7th day of September 2021, and numbered bylaw 37-2021. Who would like to move that?
I will move. Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen, seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you, Councillor Woods. Any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, please.
Councillor Gorham Matthews,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Lamb,
Yes.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
Yes.
and Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. So it's a bit of a formality, but that allows us to get the money that has been committed by ISIP to that project. And we need to get it in and collect. We need to get the bylaw in and collect the money. So thank you. Number 13, staff reports. We have a report in regard to the municipal office renovation options. I'm looking for a mover and seconder for the following motion. The Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive report admin 2021-12 municipal office renovation for information. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone provides the following direction in respect of the municipal office renovation. Okay, so we're going to have to fill that in. Tell you what, we'll fill it. We'll do it at the end. I'll ask our CAO just to give a quick review of the report that we have, and then we'll take questions and comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last time this issue came before council, there was some lively discussion, and the direction that the committee received was to not do any expansion to the building. In other words, see what could be done to accommodate the needs that were identified within the footprint of the current building. And that indeed was done with the option 3 that is attachment C. Attachment B provided for an office, which would be an expanded footprint out to the side of the building. And option A was an option that was rejected fairly early on, which was the shared training kitchen facility with the fire department. And I've noted in the report that wasn't a desirable outcome for our firefighters, and our fire chief and the committee agreed that the 2 offices should be kept separate. So a number of meetings occurred. We included the fire chief, as noted. We included some of our staff in one meeting just to talk about their spatial needs. Depending on the job that you do, you need, you know, a bigger desk or a large area for a larger screen, that kind of thing. And with help of the architect, option 3 was brought forward, and it seemed to be the most desirable and actually the least expensive of all the options that were considered. It provides for a separate private area for the chief building official, semi-open office for the deputy clerk, which she has now, a very small meeting room, and a secure desk and a little bit more space in the office for the planning assistant and the receptionist. And in doing so, it takes up some of the room of the current foyer and creates a new vestibule in the front of the current overhang of the office. So I think the report is pretty well self-explanatory. Happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Go ahead, Councillor McEwen, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thanks for the report, Michelle. It's certainly condensed it down considerably from where we were looking at back when we were comparing it with the nursing station, and worried about it going way over the top and getting too many projects all in 1 year, all that kind of thing. On page 3 of note, in 2020, municipality received Safe Start monies, and that was money from Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. The amount of $232,000 additional funds will be received in 2021, another $78,000. It would seem like this money is, some of it anyway, could be easily earmarked. In fact, a good portion of it possibly toward this renovation, looking at the safety concerns and the COVID issues that we're working around, all that. I'm wondering how we've divvied this money up. Is that something that can be explained this evening?
I can, I would say for the 2020, the money really just went into general revenue, and it was utilized for various projects. And in fact, I suspect was part of the surplus that the municipality enjoyed from 2020. The 2021 money is really also part of the general revenue. It has not been earmarked for any project specific at this time.
Okay, so we have nothing really earmarked for the offices. I guess there was $50,000 put aside at one point. So we could even look at the additional 78,000, is that correct?
I would have to check with the treasurer. Like I say, I believe it's just showing as part of general revenue.
Okay. So, but from a revenue point of view, we seem to be in pretty good shape moving forward here. If we plan it, say, over 2 years or whatever we end up doing, it's already September already. So, and one question on the actual redesign of the offices. I can see major improvement at the entrance. One of the big concerns, I know, going back when we were discussing it, I wasn't on the committee, so I'm sure this has all been hashed through big time, but the washrooms, it was hoped would be moved to a more I guess, remote location in a sense, than right at the front. In essence, we've moved the whole operation to the other side of the office space, as I see it. Could you comment on that, other than the very front vestibule?
I think it was a matter of fitting in a very specific office space for the CBO. And, you know, yes, moving the washroom to a more private area was a request by staff. It was recognized that that was an expense. And so to try to keep costs low, the architect has created some barrier walls that create an element of privacy for staff. What I understand is this washroom, the washroom that's there now was originally for both public and staff use. It is now strictly for staff, and because it was designed for the public use, that's why it was put at the front of the office in a place that's somewhat not appropriate for an office environment. But the barrier walls will somehow will certainly create an element of privacy for staff, as opposed to bearing the cost of moving the washroom to the back, which was that was shown in both A and B options.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I guess the only other question I have is more of a comment, but I've had comments from people saying that we don't spend money to expand when people can work at home and all this kind of thing. Well, I don't think our operation is conducive to that personally. Could you maybe expand on that point for people listening?
Yes, we've looked at folks working at home, and we have a couple of people that can work at home due to the job that they do a couple of days a week. But we are a small office, and people don't have one specific assigned job. And we also have, you know, files, and we need access to certain things that are part of the office environment. So people working full-time at home is not conducive, in my opinion, to this small office environment. But we certainly have the ability to allow two of our management staff to work from home a couple of days a week, and they take advantage of that from time to time. But they do find that they need to be in the office and part of some of the other things that are happening with our frontline staff as well. So it's a bit of a hybrid, but maybe not as much as you see in a large organization where people have one very specific job, maybe just data entry or something that where they're not part of the public, not in the public eye. Every one of us in the office deals with the public on a regular basis, whether it's, you know, over the phone, of course, and by email that can be done remotely, but we do deal with people outside of the office, and the public expects us to be available if we can be.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Then go ahead, Councillor Gorham Matthews.
So one of my concerns all along was about privacy in the office, you know, in terms of people walking through the entire office and seeing things that are on people's desks, because privacy laws and such have changed in the 10 years since the office was constructed. So if I'm reading this drawing right for attachment C, people will come into the entrance and there'll be like a screened area so that they can deal with the receptionist. And then there's a separate entrance from the main entrance right into the meeting room. So no one from the public will be going into the main office space. Am I looking at that right?
That's correct. It's not that people won't be invited into the office from time to time, because sometimes
Yes, no,
but you're right. Where it says new vestibule, the receptionist will deal with people through a plexiglass window. And we have what's called a barrier-free service desk, which is just through the door on the other side of the door. So if someone's in a wheelchair or needs to sit down and have special needs, they would be allowed through the door. And then also into the meeting room is also an opportunity for us to meet with people, whether it's about their taxes or a building matter or commissioning a document, that kind of thing. And the meeting room will be used for, I expect the same way our lunchroom is used right now. The cemetery comes in, cemetery folks come in when they will be able to again, a space for our counselors to sit and do accounts or read their agendas, and we have consultants from time to time. So that's our communications folks. So that's what the meeting room would be intended for. And you're correct. It would be, people would be permitted, buzzed in, I guess you might say. And the office would be secure from people walking through.
So I guess my second question has to do with the planning area. As we know, Perry Sun is leaving the planning board, and Carleen has indicated that after they're gone, that they would be interested in leaving the planning board as well. If we get to that position in a few years, do you foresee that we're still going to need more space? Because I'm thinking if we need to have a planner and doing more in-house planning items, that we're going to be tight in space in terms of having enough room to welcome more work right into our office.
Well, like you, I can't predict the future, but the option C, the attachment C, it does not entirely address the close proximity to staff, but it will work. But it really doesn't address future growth in the organization. So if you had another full-time equivalent person in the office, you can see that there would be no space for them, or you would turn the meeting room into space. Certainly with planning function, maybe there'll be shared services with another municipality, but I can't predict whether, a future council would want to create an expanded office area with what might happen in the future. But you're right, I do understand that Carleen wants to leave the planning board, and there are others as well that may actually dismantle the whole planning board, leaving us with having to find planning services in a different way.
Well, I would further to,
That was all my,
sorry?
I was just gonna say that was all my questions.
Oh, I was
Go
going
ahead.
just further to the CAO's comment. I think that we, and by we, I mean the committee, considered this as an interim solution. I believe firmly that down the road, we will in fact have at least a couple of additional staff. We will require additional staff to do things like more planning work, like more communications work. Right now, we have a number of people that have, as you know, have been involved on a part-time basis, and we will have more IT resources that need to be maintained, and perhaps people will be coming in and out on a fairly regular basis, looking after things like that. And a lot of them are, again, we're talking about things that can't be just, some of those things may be able to be done from other locations, but there will be more demand on space for staff to interact with each other and with the public, and there will be more requirements for people to have a place to come and sit and work. And when that happens, the only real avenue that we've seen so far is to extend that right portion of the building down towards the back, which could be done. It would involve removing some rock at the surface and some other things, but the committee or the task force made an effort to try to avoid breaking ground, if you will, and not expanding the exterior footprint of the building, because that's where as you could see, that's where you start to get into significant additional money. So I would suggest that the way we should look at this is that it's an interim step. It gets us some more wiggle room for the time being, makes the space we have more convenient to use, a little safer for everybody who work in it and so on. But is that it for the next 5, 10, 15 years, whatever? I don't think so. And I anticipate that a future council will have to come back and look at additional requirements at some point in time. But this, if you think about it, this is a long way from the plan to really do a major, and a long way in terms of cost and effort to from what was initially contemplated as an expansion. So I think that's the right way to look at it. I don't know, Councillor Woods was on the task force, and he might have some comments.
I could say a couple of things, Mr. Mayor. As far as the task force, I mean, we did meet a few times, and we had some staff involved, and we got all of the wants from everybody. Some people have contacted me, and their I won't say complaints, but their issues that they raised with me were the price. And I know out of the 3 options, it was definitely the cheapest one, and it would alleviate some of the issues. But the one person said to me, is this all wants or is it needs? And I mean, we have addressed some of the needs with securing the office. There's a little bit of wants in there. Do I think that this was absolutely ideal? No. I think anybody, if you've listened to me for this last little while, I've always said, and I'll stick to it, trying to do any kind of building renovation or new build on anything right now, in my opinion, if we don't absolutely necessarily have to, it's not a good idea to do it, because we're paying premiums on everything. But this is what the architect came up with, and of the 3, option C would definitely be the better one, in my opinion. But I know there are some people that are having issues with the price tag. I have a little bit of an issue with the price tag. And basically, the biggest reason is we said we put 50 aside to do the necessities. So I can understand why people would be griping a little bit when we came back and we said the necessities is going to cost us, $155, we think. I mean, that probably could go up. I don't know what all that included. I didn't ask this question, actually, and I guess that's my fault. When we were in the last committee meeting, was the 155 price tag, the estimated 155 price tag, is that including all new office furnishings for all of the staff and whatnot, or is that just construction cost?
Thank you. No new office furnishings per se. Everyone's desks and such are suitable. They can be made suitable. What will be new is the new secure desk at the front. That will have a different configuration than what the current desk has now. So there's some millwork required to actually, it's kind of a custom build to make sure that fits in that space, and the person sitting in that desk is able to maneuver sitting down to attend to the needs of the folks who are coming into the office. But other than that, there wasn't any intention of buying furniture. The meeting room will make use of a table that we now have in the kitchen, and we have chairs. So if there's office furniture that's required, that will be budgeted in a future budget. But I'm not anticipating that very much would be required at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, Councillor Lamb. So I have a number of questions if people could just sort of bear with me and then I have a few comments. So when it comes to the Safe Restart program, I just want to clarify that the 232 and the 78, we get anyway. Like, we don't have to allocate the money or say, oh, this is what we've spent it on. And they come back and say, oh, you only spent 150. We want, money back. Is that not correct? We don't have, these are monies that are given to us, right? Is that correct?
Yes,
Hello?
Yes, that is correct, Councillor Lamb.
So it whether it goes into revenues or whether it goes into any other expenditure we have, we don't have to tie it to the office building in order to justify it. So I just wanted to make that clear. I also want to ask, I see no measurements on these drawings and I see no costs. How did we come up with the various amounts? Like, how did we come up with $155,000? How was that arrived at?
Those costs were developed by the architect in concert with two local contractors, one of them being the gentleman that did the work on the library. He's still working locally, so he had a sense of what costs would be in this general area. And another contractor that she uses from time to time to test out costing of projects that she's designing. So these weren't developed by staff. These came from the architect.
So if I was to say to you, okay, you're going to enclose what I call the front porch, if I understand this correctly, how much does that cost of the 155 to enclose that whole area? So the public would kind of come in there. What's the price tag on that alone?
Sorry, I was muted. I don't have that specific number. I would have to ask the architect to break that out.
Well, don't you think we should have a breakout of those sorts of kinds of things? Because here's where I'm going to. The hallway that I call the hallway where we go in right now, where our papers are, it's my understanding that the fire chief offered not only, well, that hallway is, I think, more attached to the office, but the fire chief said, you come around the corner, close my door off, and take a part of that hallway, I think practically right down to the fire bay. But that's not reflected in the plan. Like, there's more space that the fire department has voluntarily said that you can have that we're not taking. Instead, we're trying to take the facade of the building outside and put, I don't know what we're going to put in there, but it's obviously can destroy the aesthetic look of the building. But why do we not take all of that space in the hallways?
I think, Councillor Lamb, if you look at where the meeting room is, that takes up the part of the hallway that runs up against the door that the fire chief comes in and out. So the meeting room and the barrier free service counter is part of the former, the current entrance area, as well as the area that the fire chief suggested was available for use that he wouldn't need. And he'll turn that hallway, what's left of the hallway, into a storage room.
But does he not continue to have the door into his office, or am I misreading it?
Yeah, where there's a door, the door into his office really just leads to the storage room that he's going to be utilizing. And he actually told me afterwards that he doesn't even need that door, and it would just be removed. He'd rather have a wall there and put a new desk area in for deputy fire chief. So he would access the storage room just from the equipment bay.
Yeah, I just think that there's more room that we could take in this plan. And it's, you know, I guess just a comment.
I think all the room that the fire chief suggested, and it was a great idea, is taken up with the meeting room.
Okay, well, I must be misreading this then. The 50,000, are you suggesting that we go with 150, or not you, but I mean, you say you arrived at, that we go with 155,000 plus the 50? Like it's not 110 or whatever, right? Or 105. You're suggesting we have the 155 plus the 50, and I fully understand you're not going to spend the 50 or all of it, but you've separated those out. Is that correct?
So the 155,000 plus HST is the construction costs. On top of construction costs is the architect design work is complete, and that's been charged to that 50,000 budget line. And there would be some tendering and contract admin costs of the architect, which I haven't nailed down yet. It's simply dependent on what council decides to do tonight, and which option they choose, and how much we actually feel that we need the architect. It's a small project. We certainly won't need the oversight that was required at the library, for instance. So yes, on top of that 155,000 would be some architect costs associated with developing the tender and doing some contract admin for us.
Is there contingency in this number?
Yes, there's a small contingency.
How much?
I believe it's 10,000.
Okay. How can we, because a number of people in the municipality thought that you know, we had this $700,000 project that would have been over $1 million, I think, if the nurses station helps us out in terms of costs. So many in the community, rightly or wrongly, thought, here's 50,000, go fix your problems for now and get on with it. And now I think many are going to be surprised when we start talking 155 and other costs on top of that. So how are we able to just take a $50,000 line item in our budget and suddenly say now that's $155,000 more without opening our budget? Because we didn't put in a line of 155 or 205 or anything. There was no line in our budget that identified that. So how are we able to do this in the 2021 budget? I don't understand. Every other time that we've had, you know, major things to open in the budget, you have to go back and open the budget, and you have to, you know, get approvals and go through the public process and justify and all that kind of stuff. But you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. To me, we just don't go find $155,000 and go ahead. How do we do this?
I don't know if that question is aimed at me, but I would say that's a question for council.
No, but I mean, that's the way budgets work. If we ever added 150,000 to our budget, I mean, we've in the past said, well, you know, you're 5,000 or 3,000 short. You say, okay, I'll find it into that budget or that budget. But this isn't that. This is like a whole new line item. And I just don't understand how we can legitimately do it through all the municipal acts and budgets and all the stuff that's over top of us. I just the very structure by which we work under, I don't understand it.
Well, I'm gonna respond at this point. We clearly can deal with with this is a matter that was, as you noted, was raised at budget time, and the proposal was to do a much bigger expansion than this. And the $50,000 was simply a placeholder. And there was never any understanding on anyone's part that this was going to solve the problem. It was simply a placeholder to cover the costs of continuing the work of looking at options and trying to, trying to come up with a concrete proposal that could come before council. That's what has happened. And at the time, there was, if you go back and listen to the discussion, you'll recall there were a lot of people said, well, you know, it's going to cost, if we go for the $700,000 piece, it's going to cost, you know, $1 million and so on and so on. And there was a reluctance to put that amount of money into the budget. And so what the task force did was it went back and looked to see if there were some interim things that could be done to deal with the most immediate needs that we have. And we do have immediate needs. It's not one of these things where you can just say, I'll forget it, you know, everybody should work at home or whatever. It was all considered long before the budget discussion ever took place. So we now have a manageable and realistic number. It's my opinion that council can approve doing this now that it's done the work that was necessary, that was determined as part of the budget process. It can go ahead and do it. If members of council feel strongly that we should go back and reopen the budget, then we can reopen the budget. But keep in mind, it's not going to change. It's not going to change the tax rate for 2021. It's not going to have any impact on the public in terms of taxation itself, tax rates or anything like that. It's not even going to cause us to go into a deficit position at the end of the year. What my question would be, what is the argument for having an extra public meeting where we go back and amend the budget to include it? We can do that if you want, but it just prolongs all it's going to do is prolong it. And I think if the ask was for $500,000 or $700,000 or something, then it would be a legitimate argument to say, well, that's obviously going to materially affect our financial position for 2021, and it's something that should go through the full process. But I find it hard to justify going through the full process to change what was, to replace a placeholder of $50,000 with a placeholder of $150,000. It's not, we've made changes like that in the past on various decisions when we've had to buy things or replace things and so on. It's not unheard of.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I was bringing it up, not to say we had to increase the tax rate, but to bring it up that, can we do this legislatively? Can we just do this? And I respectfully kind of halfway disagree with what you say. I'm not suggesting I'm just asking the question, how can we just do this? I'm not sure. So anyway, those I guess are my concerns. I think it's a halfway kind of sort of measure that I'm not sure achieves what we want. If you remember our discussions back, 6 months ago or whatever, yes, we did talk about working from home. And I'm one that, and again, democracy is a wonderful thing because you can have different opinions. I'm of the opinion the whole doggone world is working from home practically. Whole cities are working from home, but yet Whitestone can't because of our special kind of thing. And I agree that the lady at the front or the person at the front can't work from home. Right? She's greeting people, answering phones, and doing lots of stuff. Paula, the planning lady, it's hard for her to work from home, but certainly the treasurer can, the deputy clerk can, our CAO can on occasion. There are lots of people that can work, like it was mentioned 2. It could be 2 or 3 days a week. That frees up office space, by the way, for the building person. Because I don't think we need to have this separate office for the building inspector. I personally don't. There's work from home options. The other thing that was brought up by the community was use the facilities that we have in the community. The community center sits there day in and day out, unoccupied. And for the next year, whether we like it or not, it's going to remain the same. And the library has meeting rooms in it. And it might be inconvenient for the building inspector who's, first of all, we're going to have an automated type system that we're going to implement very soon. Secondly, they can schedule appointments for the very few people that they need to meet on, to go over drawings. They can go up to the library and use a meeting room there. They can go into the community hall if they need even more space. All it is a matter of scheduling it. Just a matter of scheduling it. The $50,000 that was put in the budget should be able to put plexiglass up and I guess a little screen to, I'm not one that's necessarily in favor of buttoning down the hatches and having little plexiglass things that you open to the public. It looks like the message to the public is, we don't want you in here or anywhere around here. And I'm not sure long-term that that's the message that I would like. I think the 50,000 could be used to adequately protect people in the office. I don't think we need an extra office. So therefore we don't need a meeting room because we already have a technical meeting room at the back. I don't think the public will support this sort of thing. I'm not going to vote for it. And I could keep asking questions, but I just think if it were me, I would say you've got $50,000, make it work. And if there's a long-term solution under a new council that they want to, do something grandiose, then do it, but don't do it now. So, and I know that the others will probably disagree with me, but please respect that I have obviously an opinion and it differs from the rest of you. So I will not be voting for this. And please think a little bit about what I say. We're going into COVID. The variants that are out there, we'd be silly to think that does anyone really think that in the new year, we're going to start having council meetings? No way. No one's been in that office for the last year and a half, and no one's about to be in that office probably for the next year in terms of the public. And we seem to be doing business just fine. So, I just don't see spending this amount of money and use 50 and get it done and live for another day, I guess. So anyway, those are my thoughts, and I'm sorry for extending what I think, but I firmly believe it. And I do believe that you do need to open the budget, but I could be wrong, obviously. So thank you.
Okay, thanks for your comments. I think everyone has spoken to this. If there are no other comments, I guess I would look for a mover and seconder to see if there is support for the direction part of this. I mean, receiving the report is for information is not, I take it as not in contention, but we need to provide some direction to move the thing forward or attempt to move it forward, I think. And that would be, says provides the following direction in respect of the municipal office renovation, that I'm suggesting some words like that we direct staff to prepare to complete the work associated with option 3, and or proceed to tender for the work associated with option 3, and that would get us to the, allow us to complete the necessary details and get some firmed up estimates of the cost, some absolute estimates of cost and so on. This is well, okay, I won't editorialize. I'll simply ask would someone like to make a motion of that sort that we proceed to the next step? And I think the next step is to put out a public tender for the work, so that we have we have some accurate information about when it can be done and at what cost.
Mr. Mayor, you're asking for a mover?
I'm asking for a mover, yes.
I will move, followed by a comment if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, this has been a gut-wrenching exercise for our staff, yourself, a lot of people. Now we've come back to about 20% of what we were looking at, the $700,000 mark. We have methods of paying for this through debenturing, through possible grants, spread it over a couple of years. We have reserves. We've earmarked a certain amount of money. I think we owe it to staff, above all, if this is going to improve working conditions and the working situation in the office. I know it's been brought to the surface by COVID and concerns that we've had to work through. I don't see it hurting us one iota if we do it properly. And we have a treasurer who I respect very much, and working in cooperation with folks around her. I think we will have a very working model of an office, which, as you said, is a phase, let's say, to move forward to if we need it. When we have time to sit down and do, say, a 10-year projection or a 5-year, maybe the next council. But I so move that we go with option 3, $155,000, and move forward with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder?
I will second it.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Gore Mathers. So I'm just writing something on here, so proceed with. So tender with option number 3. That's probably all we need to say. I would suggest to you that we can, well, never mind. Proceed to tender with option number 3 is basically the what's added to the colon that's on the motion that you've got on your paper already. Is there any further discussion? I would simply point out that,
Yeah,
well,
I'd just like to add
Oh,
one
go ahead.
thing, Mr. Mayor.
go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say that, I think this is the bare minimum that's needed. I know not everyone's receptive to doing the renovations on the office, but, I think we need to look to the future that we are going to reopen again, and hopefully sooner than later. And we can't just keep putting this off and not planning on being face to face and being interacting with one another again. So I think this is something that we have to do. And this is something that we were discussing even before COVID. There were issues with security, there were issues with staff not feeling safe with certain situations where people were able to come straight into the office. And this happens very minorly and not on an everyday basis, certainly, but it's our responsibility to provide a safe area for staff to work. And it's our obligation as well to provide privacy for people as well. I certainly appreciate Fire Chief's providing that room for the meeting room. I think that's going to be a great space for many things. And, in the future, now that we've got the new server, maybe we can get a grant to get a student in and start getting some of all of our files onto computers so people can work from home. I don't think people realize how much paper our office still uses, and they need to physically look up things. They need to be in the office. So I realize this isn't a perfect one. I don't know if C would be my first choice, but I appreciate that it meets the needs so that we can reopen safely and just get on with other matters.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the comment I was just starting to make was simply that I felt personally that the task force did a good job of looking at the various issues and of giving feedback to the architect about other possible things that could be considered, to try to make the best use of the space that we had. And I would say two things. First of all, it is a compromise. It's not one of these things where, we certainly didn't get everything that everyone would have liked. And we drew the line. Councillor Lamb was asking earlier about that corridor that runs, the one that is at the east end of that runs from the truck bay into the sort of front door to his office, if you will. And you could look at that and say, well, that's waste space. You don't really need it there. But it's because it goes along in between the outside wall and the shower room. It's pretty difficult to use it for anything other than to maybe pile boxes in or something. It's not a good space for that purpose. And so we said, well, trying to move, it's the same like moving the washroom at the front. Ideally, it would have gone to the back, but it represents extra costs. So we left it where it was. We left the showers where they were. We didn't intrude on that corridor. So, there's compromises that to try to minimize the extent of the renovation. And the second thing is that the committee did agree to it. Everybody who looked at it said, yeah, this is workable. So we had a number of staff involved, and the fire chief was involved, and so on. And so it looked like the best that we could come up with, and I don't see the sense of prolonging the exercise any further. we got to basically decide if we're going to move forward with it. And yes, we're looking forward to the day when we will be back to more or less to normal. If we wait until that happens, then we're going to wait. It could take 6 months to get this done. We could be waiting 6 months after that before we get back to using to allowing the public into the facility, because we won't have anything done at that point in time. So that's why I feel it's important for us to get to move on and try to get an interim solution. Anyway,
Mr. Mayor, could I say something?
Yes, you
If you're
could.
done, sorry.
Yeah.
A couple of things. As far as everybody on the committee, we agreed. What was agreed to was we were going to bring this and show this to everybody and see what they thought. I didn't think that this would be an absolute final. But one thing I've been saying from the very beginning was it doesn't make sense to do any kind of construction project right now. I mean, if it's an absolute need, right? And the absolute need was to fortify the front doors, basically, to make everyone feel safe. Now, you've said it, and many other people on council now have said it. This isn't exactly what we need, but this is an interim solution. So for $155,000 for an interim solution that I think most of council members I've heard say, this isn't going to serve us in the future, maybe not even in the near future. The office isn't going to be open anytime soon. With what Councillor Lamb said in regards to COVID and lockdown, it hasn't been open for 18 months. Does it make sense to do it right now? Everybody should ask themselves that question. And before you say yes or no to voting in favor or not, think about that one. Does it make sense to spend $150 now if it's not actually going to work for us? It's only going to make do for the time being. Or do we leave it to another term of council? And it won't be $150 that we'll be spending. We'll probably be spending more. But if we could secure the front and annex some of the other wants, not necessarily needs, would that be a better solution?
Well, I guess my question back to you, Councillor Woods, is do you think that I get your argument that costs are gone up, but do you really think that they're going to come down in the time frame that we're going to want to open the office back up? And I think I think we're neglecting a point that some other people have made, which is that we're really sending, if we just say, well, let's leave everything the way it is, we're not sending a very good message to our staff. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that as everybody knows, we have lost our building official. He's going to another municipality, and in that municipality, he has, I'm going to say 4 times the space, the office space that he has to operate in. It's got maybe 4 times the space of the space that he has in our office. He can spread out drawings, and anybody who does construction knows that people don't sit there at their computers and play with little drawings on an 8x12 screen. They may do it, the designers may do it, but when you're on a construction site, what do you do when you're looking at things? You've got those big drawings that roll out that are, that are 3 feet wide, and you use those because you're marking stuff up on them and keeping them handy for the folks who are working to consult with and so on. So, when you're a lot of times, in fact, all of our drawings nowadays are basically on the ones that Tyler's working with they're on paper, and he doesn't have a space doesn't have a space in his office to spread them out to work on them. And if he needs to discuss them with somebody else, he doesn't have a space to work to spread them out. So it's not a very convenient thing. And we're not, it doesn't put us in a good position to attract folks to do some of these things. They're pretty jammed in the office. There's not very much personal space around the workstations and that sort of thing. And yeah, you can put up barriers, but what you end up doing is you end up making that space even smaller. So I don't know. I mean, I hear all the arguments, but I'm saying, well, I don't know if we just, it seems to me like we're putting off the evil day, so to speak, and saying, well, we'll wait and see how the universe unfolds, and maybe when things get back and then we have a really untenable situation, then we'll go out, we'll spend, what $1 million or $750,000 or whatever the number is. It's not going to go back. That number we had before isn't going to magically shrink to $500,000 anytime soon, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think that's really the decision that we have in front of us. But anyway, I've said my piece, and I think everybody else has. I guess we have, if we pass the motion that's on the table right now, we go to tender, we get quotes. We don't have to accept the tenders, I suppose, but if we don't like the outcome of it, but I can't see the sense of going back and trying to look at yet more design options to try to recover additional little pieces of space. They're going to cost more. We can do them, but they're going to cost more. So that's that's why I think now's the time. Anyway, any other comments? I'll call the question then, because there is a question. And I guess I will ask the CAO to call the question.
Councillor Gore Matthews,
Yes.
Councillor Lamb,
No.
Councillor McEwen,
Yes.
Councillor Woods,
No.
Mayor Comrie,
Yes.
that motion is carried.
All right, thank you. Business matters. We have one on National Rail Safety Week. Whereas here's a motion that maybe we can pass. Whereas Rail Safety Week is to be held across Canada for September 20th to 26th, 2021. Whereas it is in the public's interest to raise citizens' awareness of the dangers of ignoring safety warnings at level crossings and trespassing on rail property to reduce avoidable deaths, injuries, and damage caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. Whereas Operational Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone supports Rail Safety Week from September 20th to 26th, 2021, and ongoing efforts of CN to raise awareness, save lives, and prevent injuries in communities. Would someone like to move that, please?
I will move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you. Seconded by?
I'll second it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, thank you. That's fast. Item 14.2, renewal of Integrity Commission Services. It's Commissioner Services Agreement. And you will see the background in your briefing note. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone accepts the memo from the CAO Clerk Henry for information, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone sorry. Okay, this is I'm going to turn, sorry, I'm going to just go move ahead in my file here so I can get up to the current one. Madam CAO, do you want to speak to this while I'm doing that, please? I thought there was an actual motion here. I'm sorry.
Thank you. I'll speak to this briefly, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the Integrity Commissioner had the term of his agreement was 2 years. For some reason, I thought it was 3 years. It may have been initially 3 years and council reduced it to 2 years, but the agreement technically ended on May 6, 2021. However, Mr. Elson continued doing work for the municipality and, as you know, did an investigation. So council has a couple of options. They can renew the agreement for an additional 2 years, which is within the agreement, or they can seek the services of another integrity commissioner to support the municipality. We are required to have an integrity commissioner, and that's built into the Municipal Act. So council has two options, which is why I suggested that council may want to discuss and direct staff accordingly based on one of the two options.
Okay, I was sorry, what I was expecting, thank you. I was expecting a motion that Council of Municipality of Whitestone agrees to extend the contract of Harold Elston as Integrity Commissioner for another 2 years. That's what I was expecting. Because that way we at least have someone and we know who it is. If council wishes not to do that, then I think it would be necessary for us to make some other appointment. Otherwise, we're in the situation where we don't in fact have one, and I don't know. I guess it's the luck of the draw who we get. But anyway, there is
Mr. Mayor?
in
sorry.
the Municipal Act, there is a provision for what happens if we don't. So but we should get some motion on the table for purposes of discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lamb.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem renewing this. I think it should be, I guess, the 2 years, but dated back to May the 6th, which is when the current contract expired. And that would take us to May 2023, I guess. And then any new council could then take a look at this within the first 6 months or so of them going to office. So yeah, I'm okay with it as long as it dates back to May 6th and not becomes September, October, or whatever, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to make that motion?
Yeah, as long as it's dated to May 6th, I'm fine with it. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm just going to write it down and I'll read it back to you, make sure we got what you want. But the contract of G. Elston as Integrity Commissioner. I guess it should say the appointment actually, but sorry, effective and the date. Sorry, I'm just looking at the date of this one here. Make sure we have the right date. Unless, it's the 6th of May, 6th of May, 2019. So it would be the 6th of May, 2021.
Correct.
Do you agree with that, May 6th?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry, just wanted to make sure so we have it right. All right, so the motion I have is that the council of the municipality of Whitestone hereby accepts the memo from the CAA of Clark Henry for information, and that the council of the municipality of Whitestone agrees to extend the appointment of Harold G. Elston as Integrity Commissioner effective May 6, 2021. Is that what you had in mind? That's fine.
Yeah, and it's for a 2-year term, right?
Absolutely. For a 2-year term. Thank you. Okay, is there a seconder for that, please?
I'll second.
I'll
Counselor
second
Woods.
Councilor McEwen.
Okay, I heard Councillor Woods first, so we've got him second. Any further discussion? All right. Is anyone opposed to this motion? All right, I will declare it carried. Thank you. 14.3 is simply a motion to receive the amended report of the said Harold G. Elston, Integrity Commissioner. So I'll look for a mover and seconder that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the amended report and correspondence from H.G. Elston, Integrity Commissioner, on the matter of complaints against Mayor George Comrie by Lauren King and Carmen Holbrook for information. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move Councilor McEwen.
Thank
Make
you.
that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Gorham Matthews. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to receiving the report? Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. 14.4, National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, September 30th. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendations in the TRC's call to action. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation. And whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to ensure that public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, referred to as National Orange Shirt Day, and a statutory holiday, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby commit to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities. Is there a mover and seconder for that motion?
I'll move, Councillor McEwen.
I'll make. motion.
Are you seconding Councillor Gore Matthews?
Yes, sorry, I have bad internet, so yes. I'll
Okay,
second.
I thought I heard your voice, but then I couldn't hear what you said. Thank you. So this motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I have a question, I guess, which is that it says that September 30th, 21 is a statutory holiday in Canada. It's my recollection that we established September 30th as a public meeting. I'm not sure I'm not sure if any other levels of government are celebrating it as a statutory holiday, but I'm wondering if we pass this, if then that interferes with what we were planning to do on that date. So I don't know, Councillor Gore Matthews or
Mr. Mayor?
Michelle, if you have a comment about that, perhaps you could.
I do, and I don't know if Councillor Gore Matthews would like to go first, but I could make a comment on this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that my intention with it was more to ask, staff and community members to recognize the National Orange Shirt Day. It certainly wasn't to take a day off or anything, and to use our social media that week to kind of share and support Indigenous stories that would be related to what's coming out within that week. So it wasn't to give everybody the day off. It was just to, so that we could do our part in wearing orange and to use our voice just to support the other stories that are out there.
Okay, thank you. Madam CIO, did you?
Yes,
make a comment?
yeah, it is a federal holiday for federal employees. It's not intended to be a provincial holiday. And when I first read the draft resolution, I did struggle with the wording, but I think it's clear what Councillor Gore Matthews had intended was that this not be an additional statutory holiday for staff. That it simply be a week that we recognize that specific day, but the whole week that we recognize our Aboriginal peoples. And I understand the library is also doing some work in that regard. So we would work in concert with the library to with respect to our social media. So that's what I understood, that it wasn't intended to be a statutory holiday for the municipality of Whitestone.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Lamb, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I think it's been said. I just looking at the motion here. Yeah, it's a federal holiday. It's not provincial. It's not municipal. Yeah, I think I'm okay as long as yeah, I'm okay with it. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? Is anyone opposed to the motion? Okay, hearing none, I'll declare it carried. Anyway, it's a two-page motion, but we'll get it. That brings us to 14.5, which has to do with the Board of Management of Belvedere Heights. And those of you who are staying absolutely right on top of your message will your email messages will see that I thought that we had a candidate from the municipality of McMurrick Monteith to fill the vacancy left by the resignation of Councillor Don Carmichael from McKellar. However, the individual that was suggested to me by the Reeve of McMurrick Monteith turns out to have, I found out in the middle of the day today that he had declined to serve in this capacity. So the way it was left with their Reeve was that if we could come up with somebody, they would they would support that person. So the motion that I was going to make, which was to support the appointment of Councillor Dan O'Halloran of McMurrick Monteith, and we are going to have to replace that. So with another name of a proposed councillor, if we have one. So I apologize very much for the short notice. I kind of thought this was solved with a decent solution, but it turned out not to be. I guess my question to you would be: is there anybody who is anxious to do this? I'm certainly not looking for other things to do, but if there is no one else who is interested, I guess I could take it on for the balance of his term. I certainly care about the work that's being done there, but anyway, I'll throw it open for some discussion and see. I guess I did also consider the possibility of simply deferring the thing to another meeting, which I guess Lynn Gregory, who is the chair of the board of Belvedere, had wanted to try to have a name so that they could proceed with a full complement at their next meeting. But and I don't even, to be honest, I don't even know when it is. But I'm not sure that our situation is going to change any further. I got the impression from McMurrick Monteith Reeve that there isn't anybody else there that wants to do it. So, and I think given the situation in McKellar, they have also declined to appoint somebody in the interim. So it kind of falls to us. Any thoughts or suggestions? Well,
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to add any more to your plate. I just wanted to make everyone aware that I did have a conflict of interest with regards to being on the board of Belvedere Heights. And I explained that to you earlier, so I'm not trying to get out of work. I'm just letting everybody know that I wouldn't be a good candidate for that position.
Okay, well, thank you for saying that. I think you might be right. And I know you're busy with a lot of other things. Anyway, if
I nominate the mayor.
If someone wants to, well, okay. If that is the wish of council, I will do it for the balance of the council term. But if that's a mover, is there, Councillor Lamb's moving, is there a seconder?
I'll second that.
Councillor Gorham Matthews. Okay, so let's see what the wording is. That the council does hereby appoint the appoint. What am I gonna say? So it'd be here. Okay, here's what I have. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby appoint Mayor George Comrie to the Belvedere Board of Management as representative for Area 4, which is Whitestone, McKellar, and McMurrick Monteith for the remainder of the term of council. Is that your motion, mover and seconder?
Yep.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Is anyone opposed? All right, hearing none, I'll declare it carried. And I'll abstain, not that it makes any difference, but anyway. 14.6 was an item that Councillor Lamb requested regarding the Pool and Wellness Center discussion regarding meeting conditions. I'm not sure if this is a question or whatever, but if you'd like, Councillor Lamb, if you wish to ask it or
Yeah,
or move something or whatever, then go ahead.
Yeah,
sir.
I don't know whether it's move or staff direction or whatever, but you know, as the pool, you know, I've observed other communities, McKellar, Carling, I guess, have addressed the pool issue in their own ways, with both of them with sort of caps and things like that. I think of one form or another. I don't know what Seguin is doing or what they've done, but anyway, as we've kind of come to the completion of this, we had asked that, you know, our contribution was subject to an independent study of obviously the operating model and by again a third party. And I guess you know, in my mind, I'd like staff to perhaps write a letter to, I don't know who to write it to, maybe the group of mayors or whoever's in charge of this, to say, you know, just to inquire that do you intend to do this study, and or not, and if yes, when do you plan to do it? So I'm sort of intrigued to the answers to that. I think the electorate should be interested in that. So we've got $400 some odd thousand sort of hanging a bid on this. So that's all I'm asking, is we just send a letter asking, you know, you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. So that's my request. That's why I asked for it to put on, but we haven't heard from them, so I don't know, right? I mean, maybe they've told you they are, or they haven't told us anything that I know of.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask our CAO again, who's working overtime tonight, to just fill everybody in on sort of where things are at the moment, as best she can. And I mean, there isn't. Anyway, I'll add comments if I think are necessary. But Michelle, do you want to? You want to sort of bring everybody up to date on what the current activity is in regards to this?
Right. I can share with council that not a heck of a lot happened through the summer. The steering committee met a couple of times, and I've explained to council that I stay connected to the steering committee, and I'm invited to be there, even though Whitestone has a different proposal than the other municipalities. And, you know, Whitestone is welcome at the steering committee, as the mayor is welcome at the WCPC meetings. What the main focus is happening right now, and there's a meeting tomorrow of the WCPC committee, is they have to get the agreement signed with the province. The province need the agreement signed by September 10th, which is Friday, the same day they need our ISIP agreement signed by the municipality. And this is all connected to the federal election. They're in a hurry to get these things tidied up. An extension was requested a couple of weeks ago, and that was because up until recently, McKellar had not made a decision and Carling had not made a decision. And I understand Seguin is making a decision tonight, if I'm not mistaken. But there was a concern that without all the decisions being made by the various municipalities as to what their percentages and what they've committed to, it would be difficult to sign the agreement and form the Municipal Services Board. Perry Sound themselves does not want to sign the agreement. And in fact, they can't sign the agreement because the application was made on behalf of the area municipalities. So very quickly, the decision has to be made tomorrow on what the agreement and what the Municipal Services Board is going to look like. And of course, we acknowledge, Whitestone's acknowledged we're not part of the board, and the Municipal Services Board has to be formed and sign the agreement by the 10th. Now, I'm not sure that that can actually happen, but there's a lot of people that are working hard to make that happen because there's municipalities don't want to lose the funding. So beyond that, not a heck of a lot has happened. Certainly there hasn't been any move towards any design, any further design, any final design, or even the decision whether it's a design build or design tender. There's various discussions on which is the best option to follow for a facility of this type. And in fact, I don't think all the amenities have been decided on. There's groups that would like 4-lane. I heard 5-lane today, and I know that Seguin is posturing for 6-lane. So there's a lot of work to be done before and our resolution says prior to the final design. This resolution has been before the steering committee several times, and the WCPC committee has seen it. So they're quite aware of what Whitestone's expectations are. And I've reminded them when the opportunity has arisen. And everyone on the steering committee that I work with has agreed that this work will be done. There just isn't a timeline right now because there hasn't even been a move to decide how the project will be tendered or move forward from where they are now. So that's what I can share with you. There's discussions about hiring a project manager, about building a committee for fundraising, but all this has been set aside for the moment to try to find a way to get the agreement signed by Friday, September 10th. So hopefully that helps.
Yes, the only thing I would add to it is that Whitestone is, as you know, is not a signatory. I will be participating in the meeting tomorrow morning just to be aware of what's going on. We don't have a lot to say. We probably don't have anything to say, but the various municipalities have each, well, I don't say each of them, but the last 4 of the 7, I guess, to deal with this, including us, had sort of imposed various conditions or tried to impose various, or sometimes in some cases simply suggested things that should be in the shared services agreement. We, as you know, Whitestone, as you know, declined to participate in that shared services board. So we don't have any of those conditions, but that doesn't have anything to do with the other conditions that we put on the money, which are independent. But clearly they are not going to, those will be done at a kind of a final design stage, which is a ways away. And as Michelle has advised you, the current focus is on just getting the agreement signed so that the money can flow. And I think just looking at the various factors that the other municipalities have raised, that it should be possible for that to be sorted out in a final version produced relatively quickly. And as long as they can get that agreement, then as long as they can get the remaining, the other 6 participants to sign that agreement, then it'll go forward. And I am, anyway, I'm pretty
Okay, yeah,
confident that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess my comment is, as long as, I think I heard our CAO say that the group has said that this will be done, as long as we have that. Perhaps what we can do is I guess is this meeting tomorrow, Mr. Mayor, a public meeting or a closed meeting?
I honestly don't know. I would guess that it's closed by virtue of the fact that it involves perhaps some negotiation, but
Okay.
I don't,
well,
I'd have to look and see, but I don't, sorry, I don't know offhand without taking a look at, I just saw the agenda. This was a very, this meeting got scheduled sort of over the weekend, so it's very,
okay.
very last minute kind of thing.
Well, I'll defer the letter for another month or so until let the dust settle. And then I'll probably come back with the same sort of request. At some point, I'd like to know, and I think the populace and all of council should want to know whether they're going to do that study or not. But having said that, I also heard through, I think, the Carling meeting, someone infer that, and I don't know whether there's any truth to this, or either you or CAO have heard this, that the group was going to say to Whitestone and McKellar, you're either in or you're out. There's no kind of in between. Is there any truth to that?
Not that I've heard, no.
Okay. Well, I think someone said it over there in that meeting, and I thought, oh, that's sort of strange. But anyway, maybe they were just dreaming. I don't know. So
They may be, they may, well, sorry, in and out of the shared services board. Yeah, I mean, I think,
no,
but that's a decision that someone else could make. And by the way, I don't believe anyone else is going to make that decision. I think we're the only ones that are.
No, the context that was said under was you're either in for the amount of monies that we asked for, or you're out. No in between, sort of. But anyway, hopefully that's not going to happen.
Well, I think there might be some people that might be the sentiment of some folks, but
sure, I'm sure it is.
But hey, what's the choice? The choice is you get what was offered, or to get nothing. Does that
doesn't make a lot of sense to me? But anyway,
no, it doesn't to me either. So I don't know what somebody might have said, but
okay, well, let's move on.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, let's move on. We're short of time. I'm done on this. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That was sort of an information or question item. Number 14.7 was annual volunteer and staff appreciation event. What did you want to say about that, Madam CAO?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't, I hope no one thought I was implying that we would have our annual dinner and event, because I know it's tentative times and it's just too early to be thinking that we would come together as a group. But I wanted to remind council that we still had volunteers working in the municipality, even though COVID was amongst us. Our cemetery folks continued to work, our volunteer firefighters. I know our thrift shop didn't get together, but we have a new environmental committee. And I don't think that our recreation committee really had any events or any activities, but I know that they met and discussed options. So I thought it might be appropriate that we somehow still recognize our volunteers, whether it's a letter or a small token of appreciation. just looking for council input on that. Oh, and I don't want to forget the library volunteers either.
Thank you. I was just going to say the library.
Well, they were on my list. I have notes and I skipped over them, but yeah. People continued to do what they could under the circumstances, and I think that's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I guess, you know, I can remember when we weren't able to have the volunteer appreciation dinner or not too long ago, and then we had a really probably the best one that was ever held, where we had the I think the magician was in, and there was bands, and it was really good, and people really appreciated it. So I think we can have a Helldammer party when we get out of COVID, and really appreciate our volunteers in this community. And I said the same thing with respect last month with respect to fireworks. You know, we should be able to do one or two big fireworks displays once we're out of all this. So I don't know whether we should send out a letter this year. You know, people like to be recognized. I guess a letter might do it. I don't know that buying them a ball cap or a shirt is, I mean, if that's what council wants, you know, I don't know that I'm okay with it. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments about this particular?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Councilor McEwen, might be some time before we can actually get together if it goes through another whole round of things, another phase or something. I think if we could show a little bit of appreciation somehow, and I'm not sure just what it would be, as Councilor Lamb mentioned, maybe just a small item. Maybe staff can work on that, but that would be my thought, to recognize them in a small way, at least at this time.
Okay. I don't hear any specific motions or anything, but do these suggestions help, Madam CAO?
Thank you, everyone. I'll give some thought to it, and I'll get some staff input, and I'll let you know what some of the ideas are, and we'll see if everyone agrees, and then we can go from there. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, with that, I think we can move to correspondence. And I will ask, is there any, you see a number of items there, and there's quite a lot of information in the correspondence this time around, but are there any particular
You're not
ones?
over curfew, Mr. Mayor?
We actually, thank you, we actually are, because we're at 9. Oh, yeah, we're at 9:30. All right, I will take a curfew. Let me see if I have a curfew motion here. I probably do. Yes, I do. The council, can I get a mover and seconder? The council continue its council meeting past the allotted time of 3.5 hours and continue for an additional 1/2 hour.
I'll make the motion.
Councilor Lamb, thank you. Seconded by,
I'll second Councillor Woods.
thank you very much. I'm assuming everyone is okay with doing that. All right. Thank you. So of the correspondence items, are there any I would like to just very quickly highlight items R and S, which have to do with Lorimer Lake. And we have a representative of their Cottagers Association who's hung on for this length of time, and I thought perhaps we would just let her speak briefly to those maybe, but anyway, are there any other ones? that you want to discuss? Okay, I'm not hearing any. So the resolution then is, whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 6 of the September 7th agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that council received the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion, and they both have to do with Lorimer Lake, but two different things. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen. Seconded by,
I'll second, Counselor Woods.
thank you, Councilor Woods. So, just very quickly, item R is a subject that has come up, and I think I did draw it to your attention at a previous meeting, that there are a number of cottagers both, and it turns out there are some in McDougall and in Whitestone who were in fact relying on the Lorimer Lake Lodge, and I guess still are, but they were concerned that that arrangement may not continue in future, and had asked us to look at the possibility of providing some public access at the Whitestone end of the lake. As you know, probably 2/3 of the lake is in McDougall, and maybe 1/3, I hope I'm not misrepresenting that, but is in Whitestone. So that's what the first letter was about. And the second one is a suggestion for a couple of revisions to the official plan to the lake specific portion of it that deals with Lorimer Lake. And I see that on the phone we have Cecilia Parks, who is on the executive of the Lake Association for Lorimer Lake. If it's all right, I'll invite Cecilia, if you would like to just speak to these briefly.
Hi, Mayor Comrie. Thank you very much for introducing me. And I know that it's already past 9:30, and I think, your council has been very dedicated to be on this call for so long. And what I was going to propose was that I do a formal delegation for your September 21st meeting. And Michelle Hendry did send me a formal delegation form, and I can certainly fill that in and make a presentation during that meeting, if that's okay with you.
Well, it's okay with me. I do have to ask our CAO though, do we have space for another delegation there? I thought we already had
Yes.
something.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have another tentative delegation for the 21st, but I believe there's room for a second. And I've spoken with Ms. Parks about that.
Okay, all right. Well, if that's if that's, I suppose that's a more standard way to do it. I suggested that we, because the correspondence that we received from the association came in just as we were finalizing the agenda, I thought, well, we would normally put it as correspondence, but if you're going to request a delegation, then we can defer it. And
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, can I ask one question of Cecilia?
I think so, sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, not to prolong it, but I've been of interest. Do the people that use the Lorimer Lake Lodge to, I guess, get to their lake or to their lake access property, do they have deeded access through the Lorimer Lake Lodge, or it's just been a friendly arrangement over the years? Are you able to answer that for me? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. I know Gary Monahan is also, he's our president for the Lorimer Lake Cottage Association, and he's on as well at present. Gary, did you hear that question?
I heard the question and I don't know the answer. My guess is that they do not have deeded access, but I can confirm that. But my guess is that they do not.
My understanding is that they do not. I have talked to a number of these individuals who've contacted us saying what's going to happen, and their situation is it's like going through a marina on any other lake. They pay something to the operators of the marina to allow them to park and dock there, and but it is possible for the owner to say, sorry, I don't want to do this anymore. There's no indication that the new owner intends to do this in the short run, but I think he is working on plans for the renovation of the property, and might be desirous of at least separating the resort part from the folks who are using it as lake access. And so I think the concern they're raising is it's a legitimate question, but no, I don't believe that these are people whose properties are water access only, and I don't believe they have deeded access.
Thank you.
And just to go, everything you said there is true. And I guess what has people concerned, and it's not only the water access only people, but anyone even on the mainland, they have to launch their boat some way or somehow. So it actually involves everybody on the lake. But what has people concerned is this particular owners, although they at the moment they say they are going to keep the launch and the docking and the parking going, is they are an investment group. They're not interested in really running a marina. They're asked us not to call it a marina. They're not providing a lot of services the previous marina did. So when they're just one business decision away from closing this, it's a fact. Now, so far they've been open and friendly, and I don't want to dispose what their future plans are, but it could be something that they could make a decision tomorrow, or maybe a decision 4 years from now. But somewhere down the road on the lake, between Whitestone and McDougall, we're going to need a public launch.
Okay, so if we're going to do a delegation, we should probably move on. But thank you both Cecilia and Gary for coming and sticking through the meeting this long. But maybe we can have a more fulsome discussion at a subsequent meeting. Anything else? Are we done with correspondence? I think so. So no matters arising. Well, by resolution anyway. All right. Councilor items.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lamb.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I took a trailer of stuff to York landfill, and then I took my wood products up to Alls on the weekend, or just before the weekend, and I was astounded of the amount of brush and wood up at Alls, and I said, "Holy camoly! Look at all this!" And the landfill attendant said, that's nothing. You should see behind here. It's all, they've just pushed everything. There's a whole bunch more behind here. And I thought, oh my God, we made a decision on council to send the brush up to Alls with the idea that I don't know, I guess we can't burn it, but that's what we used to do, and it was quite efficient. But secondly, we were going to get a chipper, and we were going to get this industrial chipper in and chip it all up and give the chips away to people and whatever, right? That's not being done. And I know we can make excuses, not excuses, but well, the chipper's not here and it's too expensive and it's this, that, and whatever. But for the love of, we should not be filling Alls up with branches and timbers and wood. We should be doing something about it. And so what are we doing about it? I guess is my question. And I'm asking this on behalf of other people who have asked me. So yeah, I mean, we need to do something up there. So any response to it?
I could speak to that, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
The Public Works Manager has let me know that he's arranged for a grinder, chipper and grinder to come in to take care of all that brush. He's well aware that there's a lot more than I think we expected. And of course, we've had a number of storms this summer that have added to that. I don't actually have the date when the grinder is coming, but I can find out for council and let you know. I don't recall the name of the company offhand, but I know that arrangements have been made. So I will find out when they plan to be up there. And you're right, there'll be wood chips, and the decision really hasn't been made. I suppose council could make that decision whether we give them away to people. People are always interested in that kind of thing, or we can also use them for cover of the landfill. That's also permitted within our operations plan at the landfill.
Thank you.
Okay, other councillor items.
Mr. Mayor, just a brief comment.
Go ahead.
The nurse practitioner led center, the nursing station, they held an enormous yard sale and bake sale on the weekend. It's the second long weekend that they've done it this summer. And what I understand, they made over $4,400. So the $4,400 matched by our secret donor equates to $8,800. So it's the second time they've had a remarkable support for this type of activity. So my hat goes off to them. I was away and could not assist them on this one, but they did a wonderful job. So just for information.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else? Okay, that brings us to number 17, questions from the public. Are there questions from the public?
I have my hand up, Mr. Mayor.
I see it. I see it. Doug, go ahead, please.
Okay. Let me just put the. Okay. I disagree with, and I'm disappointed with the $155,000 for the office expansion. But I also understand council has decided, voting 3-2. And I'm not a councillor, I'm just a ratepayer. And I just wanted to let you know how I feel about that. But here's my question. Mayor Comrie, earlier tonight, you had said we had a $50,000 placeholder, and you actually used the word saying that's now replaced with $155,000. However, CAO Hendry says that the $155,000 is on top of the $50,000. And 155 with tax gets to be about 170. And if you add 50 to 170, we're at 220. Don't you think that the public should hear that full number and not just think it's 155? So what is the number?
The simple answer is the reason I referred to it as a placeholder is because we don't know the exact number for any of those things. And we have an estimate which was produced. It's really kind of a budget estimate that was produced by a design, as you heard, a design contractor or a designer in consultation with a contractor. The decision that council made was to go to tender. Once you go to tender, then you know what something is going to cost. And the tender will come back to council, and council will know exactly what it's going to cost. And they'll know, and so will the public. So, we had two choices, as I see it. One was to simply do nothing and leave the universe to unfold, or proceed to the next step. That's what council decided to do. So, none of us is in a position to tell you a number at this point. The only way we're going to get the precise number is when everything comes, when this tender comes back and we see what we're faced with, right?
I understand that, but my question is, what do you think everybody on council, what do you think the public thinks they heard? That council has earmarked 155, or that council has kind of earmarked 220? Which one do you think is the target now? Let's be clear. Let's not say it's 155 if in fact it's going to be 170 plus 50. Let's be honest.
There is money that has, as you know, as you heard, there is money that has already been spent.
And we didn't hear how much.
Well, I think if the CAO had had all the detailed accounts here with her, then perhaps we could find that out. But that money is spent. That money, whether we do something or nothing, that came out of the $50,000. So there's some left. I don't know how much it is. That's information that council would also find out, because when the next time council hears about this, there will be a financing plan and everything, so you'll know exactly what the numbers are. But I'm sorry, you can ask till the cows come home. You're not going to get the answer to that question tonight. And
No, you're misunderstanding, Mr. Mayor. You're
No,
misunderstanding.
I'm sorry. Look, this thing is called questions from the public. It is not called. It's not called argue with the mayor or argue with council. If I can't answer your question, I can't answer your question.
Okay, I will ask the CAO. Madam CAO, how much of that $50,000 have we spent or will we spend, roughly? Madam CAO, are you there?
I'm sorry about that. I did answer your question, but you couldn't hear me.
Correct.
Yeah, yes, approximately $4,000, perhaps a little bit more. There may be one more invoice that's related to the design work to date for the architect.
That's an excellent answer that would have answered my question, Mr. Mayor, is if we've only spent 4 and we might spend a few more. So it's not 50 plus 155 plus tax. So thank you. And to Councillor McEwen, earlier you said that we can find money, and you said we're not hurting one iota by spending money. That's wrong. No matter what we spend, it always has effect on taxpayers, regardless of whether or where you find it. Every spend.
Doug, this is not an opportunity for you to conduct a. Is there a question? If not.
Okay, my question's been answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Are there other questions from the public?
Yeah, hello, Mr. Mayor. It's Scott Nash. I have a question, if I could.
Go ahead.
If that's all right. Perfect. So I guess there's two questions I have. The first one is a family member of mine was down at the Dunchurch public area there with the playground and boat launch and rink facilities over the weekend. And she went to throw out garbage there because she was with a couple grandkids and noticed there was no garbage cans or recycling cans. So I'm not sure who I'm asking the question to, but I guess the question would be, is there no garbage cans at the public facility there, I'd call it? And if there aren't garbage cans, why is there not garbage cans? Because when my mom was searching for a garbage can, turns out another lady was searching for a garbage can. And I think they ended up giving it to one of the volunteer firefighters that were happy to take whatever it was, a couple wrappers or drink boxes and stuff like that. So I guess my question again is there garbage can facilities there for the public to use when they're visiting the playground and waterfront? And if not, why is there not?
Okay, I will once again ask our CAO to answer it. There is an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The removal of the garbage cans actually started last year when COVID first hit, and we thought it was safer for staff not to handle garbage. And what we found, and you'll find this in other municipalities as well, it's a policy. If there's no garbage cans there, we don't get the mounds of not only personal but household garbage that's difficult to clean up. So people will, whatever they bring in, they take out. We've had very few complaints. We do get a little bit of garbage left around the beach from time to time, or the playground area, but most people understand that they bring their garbage, whatever they bring from home, they take back with them. And it's made the beach area actually a much nicer and cleaner beach area, as well as the park area. And we really haven't had a lot of complaints, and it's actually an interesting policy to maybe follow through with. And we follow through with it this year for the same reason, just so that our staff won't have to handle garbage. So that is the reason behind having no garbage cans there. And if I know the first year I was here, we were constantly cleaning up. People would bring household garbage down to the bins, and they'd be actually overflowing, hours after they were cleaned up by staff. And staff do cleaning twice a day at the beach on the weekend. So we've kept up with that protocol, and it seems to be working. We've had very few concerns or complaints.
Okay, no, thanks for the answer. It was really just a question because she was looking for somewhere. And then the second question I have, and I know it's been a long night for everybody. It's been, almost 4 hours. And it's just a comment in regards to the delegation was there tonight. And I just wanted to make note and maybe ask a question about it, that I think lake plans are good as a whole. And although the delegation recommended a specific lake policies, I'll note that it's really to do with development and not a specific lake policy. And all I wanted to bring to the attention, I think it was brought up by one of the councillors tonight, was at the annual general meeting for the Lake Association, it was brought up that one of the main concerns of the questions and surveys that were handed in was septic health. And when when something was brought up for it in regards to a reinspection program for septics on new lots or existing lots, there was only 3 people that voted in favor of having a specific lake policy that relates to septic health. And I guess my question would be, if council feels, and I understand that council supports reinspection programs for septic health, that would be an important thing to include on any type of lake specific policies or even amendments. And I guess that's a question to maybe a couple councillors or anybody that might want to comment on that. And thank you.
Thanks for the question. I don't know if Councillor Gorham Matthews, if her committee has talked about this. It's a the council has not. I can say that the council has historically not taken any position on it, but anyway. I'll I'll ask Councillor Gorham Matthews. Have your folks talked about it at all? Your group?
Yeah, we do have a subcommittee looking at that topic, and I believe that Scott is on that committee. I don't know what decisions or recommendations they've come to yet. We have a meeting next Wednesday, and I expect we'll hear more. But at this point, they were just looking at what other municipalities do and best practices and education and things that we could recommend. So nothing really solid to report at this point, but it is on the committee's agenda.
Anybody else want to weigh in? I'm reluctant to say too much because we haven't really discussed it as a council, but I think it's one of the things that it's one of the steps that we can all do is to make sure that our septic systems are not polluting. And sometimes, after they've been around for a while, they have to be replaced, right? They may have to be replaced, not just pumped out, but replaced. And nobody really wants to do that because it costs a chunk of money. And sometimes when you go to replace it, you can't put it back where it was, where you put it 50 years ago, because 50 years ago, the rules were a lot laxer than they are now. And now you won't get approval to replace it there. So,
Mr. Mayor?
it's not a simple thing. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, just a comment back to Scott. When it comes to all kinds of stuff, whether it's development, lake policies, that sort of thing, you get this NIMBY part, right? And of course, that means not in my backyard, right? And I'll just tell you a quick story. When I first got on council 14 years ago, someone called me over to a couple of neighbors who I won't tell you the lake. But when I got to the lake, they were complaining about someone who would put a beach in, and they took me down and said, look at that beach. All that sand came in there. It's terrible. It's against all the rules, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm not sure who's responsible for that. And I didn't. But as I turned to go back up to the car, I looked around and I said, oh, whose beach is that over there? And they said, oh, that's our beach. So, that was my first lesson in NIMBYism. I don't know whether that's even a word, but that's what happens. And council obviously has to be aware of that whenever they do whatever policies on a lake. They should fit everyone, not a select few, right? If it's good for a vacant lot, it should probably be good for an occupied lot. And that's a generalization, not associated with any particular subject, but that's what people tend to do. So that would be my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right.
Just a quick comment on the subject there.
Yeah.
When we were beginning to speak to each other on the Environmental Stewardship Committee, septics came up a couple times, and I guess the question was asked why we don't do another complete round of septic inspections by municipality and such. So there are issues like just trespassing on people's property that you used to do and you can't do anymore without permissions. Students did it before, and I guess they gave out or sold out these tablets which people could use to check their tanks out. So those types of tablets and things are still available today. But other than going through, say, North Bay, Mattawa Conservation Group, there is no real quick and easy way to do it. But the ad hoc committee on the environmental stewardship committee is looking into where we can go, what we can do, I believe. So it is, I thought, Scott, you were tuned into some of the meetings yourself, if I'm not correct. Maybe you missed some of that, but anyway, moving forward, we hope you get some answers.
Okay,
No,
well,
I appreciate all your comments back, and it was really just a point that we're doing a possible lake-specific study or lake-specific policies on Gooseneck Lake, and septic system shouldn't be included, and I found fascinating was all. So I appreciate all the councillor and mayor's comments on the subject, and I hope you all have a good evening. Thank you very much.
okay, thank you, Scott. I think we've just about used up our time, but I see Ed Can's hand up, so Ed will give you the last question if that's okay.
I'm going to be very quick, Mayor Comrie. As far as the septics are concerned, when we built our house on Fairholme Lake, it wasn't approved because of the septic problem. And we ended up with John Jackson. We had to pump our effluent, whatever it's called, 1,000 feet back over the land, over the top of a hill, down into a septic system. And that's fine. It costs us about 25 grand. But we were told it will be inspected every 4 years. We've never seen anybody. We look after it, so I'm not concerned, but I don't know what the follow-up should be. The second thing, as far as sandy beaches, Impact came around to our house and wanted to assess me for a sandy beach. And I said, I didn't put it in. They said, well, how did it get there? I said, well, there's a little stream that runs right the way down there, and it carries all kinds of sand and gravel down there, and it's a natural beach. It's been there for years. So she went away. Very quickly, as far as the new officers are concerned, my concern is, and I wasn't that involved 10 years ago, but when the new offices were built, one of the considerations that I understand was that you wouldn't spend more than $1 million. And it turns out that was short-sighted. There was no room for expansion. And I'm just concerned with this 155,000 is not really addressing the true problem that you have in terms of space for your staff. And rather than spend 155,000, I would think a proper survey should be done, a proper costing. Whether it's 700,000, maybe it's 700,000, but I just think it's a stopgap measure. Then I have one quick question for Michelle. The municipalities contributed $170,000 towards preparing for the wellness center. My understanding is that that money has been spent and more, and there are bills outstanding because the steering committee has no money. Have any of the municipalities agreed to pay funds to cover the cost of this RFP for a general contractor or general manager or whatever? Or are those bills still outstanding? They haven't been paid. So if you have an answer, Michelle, I'd appreciate it.
I don't have a complete answer for you. My understanding is that the amount of money over and above the due diligence cost, which was 170,000, and Whitestone's contribution was 12,000, I believe,
Right.
are minor. I can check on that. And I think some municipalities have agreed to contribute, but it isn't formal. Whitestone will not be contributing. I understand that from council. So I don't have a clear answer on how the cost of the project manager is going to be funded, but I believe the municipalities that are going forward with the process, other than Whitestone in the manner that they had designed, will be contributing money to get that portion of the project started, which is the project manager.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the answer I was expecting, and I don't need any more information. As long as Whitestone is not involved in paying any more funds into the over and above what they've committed. That's it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a mover and seconder for our confirming bylaw, please?
I'll move it, Councillor Lamb.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by.
I'll second
Councillor Woods.
Okay, I got Councillor Woods first, I think. That the bylaw 38-2021, the confirming bylaw for the council meeting of Tuesday, September 7th, be given a first, second, third, and final reading and is passed as of this date. Any objection? Okay, thank you. That's passed. And finally, a motion to adjourn.
I also move, Councilor McEwen.
Thank you, Councilor McEwen, seconded by
I'll second, Councillor Woods.
Councilor Woods. Now therefore be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at 10:10 PM. Till the next scheduled meeting of, which is on Tuesday, September the 21st, 2021 at 6:30 PM or at the call of the chair. And remember, that's the Tuesday after the federal election day. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for your patience.
Blue Jays 1-5-1.
Hey,
Good night, everybody.
good stuff.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.